this pile over here. Whoop! Try that again. Hello everyone, my name is Cait. I'm a part-time English literature student at the University of Oxford and a full-time employee at Google. The other day, someone asked me what my top books would be that I would recommend, or the best that I've read. And it really got me thinking about my bookshelves and what books that I have read and what I would recommend to people. So I thought I would put this little video together and talk about my top 5 books. So first point of call, I think, is to just have a quick sweep through the bookshelves, kind of pull out the books that I know are my best reads, and then we can discuss them. The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand is one of my absolute best books in the entire world, and I have this really beautiful first edition that was printed. Let me actually get it out quickly. So I found this absolutely gorgeous book at my secondhand bookstore, thebookshop.ie. I will leave a link to it down below, and I paid pretty good money for it. It's got a person's name in there that I can't quite make out. If you can figure it out, then let me know. But this is quite interesting. So this is before she had published Atlas Shrugged. You can see the binding's a bit fragile, and it's by Castile and Company, which is just so amazing. I love this book so much. It's one of my pride and joys, this book, the secondhand version that I found, this vintage version. But the version that I had from a girl when I read this is this Penguin's Classics, I suppose Modern Classics edition, when the spines were still white. Yes, kids, before they were blue, they were white. So this is the cover of the book that I have. You can see the pages are very well worn. The spine is bent, which isn't ideal, but this was the copy that I had and that I read for the very first time, and which I have read subsequently numerous times. So yeah, this is my version, first published in 1943. And we'll talk about this book more. Since we were in the Ayn Rand section, there was another one that I think is going to be my top. In my top is James Baldwin's Giovannis Room. This beautiful little volume. James Baldwin's one of my favorite authors, and this volume came a part of this Penguin's Great Loves set that I also found from my secondhand bookshop. So very, very good deal there. But this is up there for sure. So add that to the pile. Oh, you know what? Yeah, no, absolutely. Stoner. Yeah, this is definitely going to be one. This book is absolutely incredible. It even says the greatest novel you'll ever read. And I totally agree with that. I also got this book secondhand. This is by John Williams, I believe. Yes, that's right. And yeah, we'll talk about this book. Let's jump back here. Oh, yeah, no, I know. I spoke about this book recently as well. Ulysses by James Joyce. You can see my copy still has its tags in it, and the spine is nicely worn out. But yeah, okay, she's going on the pile. Let's jump back here. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Tomb of Sand by Geetanjali Shree. This, so many words for this book. It's absolutely incredible. That is going on to the pile. Got quite a big pile already. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 already. Just trying to think off the top of my head if there's anything here that is going to jump out at me. Pachinko I spoke about last time, it being one of the books, probably one of the best books that I've read this year. Nervous Conditions, possibly. It's really good. Never Let Me Go as well is also really good. And Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall. You know what? I'm just going to pull them out. They are absolutely exceptional books. And I feel like they need honorable mentions. Just see what's back. Oh, yeah, I think I have to. I think I have to there. You know what? I think this is it. I think I'm going to stop here because otherwise I'm going to just go a bit nuts. I definitely feel like I'm missing some books. So maybe as we're going through, I might be inspired to look at other ones. But for now, this pile over here is my top books. And let's discuss them. Let's go through them. Nervous Conditions, I spoke about this book previously. The next book in the trilogy, which is the Book of Not? Or is it The Small Body? One of the two is on my 2023 TBR. Nervous Conditions engages with colonialism in Zimbabwe and mental health and gender stereotypes so brilliantly, so brilliantly. And this book just was incredible, absolutely incredible. And I'll just read the blurb because it's really short. 2 decades before Zimbabwe would win independence and end white minority, 13-year-old Tambudzai Sikawa embarks on her education. On her shoulders rest the economic hopes of her parents, siblings, and extended family, and within her burns the desire for independence. A timeless coming-of-age tale and a powerful exploration of cultural imperialism, Nervous Condition charts Tambu's journey to personhood in a nation that is also emerging. Unbelievable. As you can see, I have 1,000 tabs in this because I wrote one of my exam essays on it last year. I felt so passionately about this book. And yeah, yes, 1,000 times yes. Never Let Me Go. Ishiguro, if you have not read any of Ishiguro's books, I would say you need to go to the store right now and pick them up. Ishiguro is one of the best authors I think I've ever read. Most people will know about Clara and the Sun. That came out did it come out last year or the year before? I can't remember, but it had big hype last year. And I haven't read Clara and the Sun. I actually have it. Do I have Clara and the Sun? I possibly do. I think I do. This is why I need an inventory of my books. But Never Let Me Go was the first one that I read. It was so special to my heart. It is such an incredible book, and I think everyone just needs to read it. I think it's just absolutely insane. Narrated by Kathy, now 31, Never Let Me Go dramatizes her attempts to come to terms with her childhood at the seemingly idyllic Hailsham school, and with the fate that has always awaited her and her close friends in the wider world. A story of love, friendship, and memory, Never Let Me Go is charged throughout with a sense of the fragility of life. Just do yourself a favor. Just do yourself a favor. For all my historical fiction friends out there, Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall trilogy. Wolf Hall, this is the first book. This book is incredible. Absolutely incredible. The Wolf Hall trilogy traces the rise and eventual fall of Thomas Cromwell, who was the advisor to King Henry VIII. You know, all 6 wives. Well, you don't see all 6 in here, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It is steeped in historical context, but is told from the perspective of Thomas Cromwell. And this book is sensational. Absolutely sensational. It distorted, or it's ruined for me, all other historical fictions that I've ever read, because nothing can match up to this. Absolutely nothing. This book is phenomenal, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise. And I am maybe small, but I am feisty. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Dune by Frank Herbert. I did not think that I would love this book as much as I did when I read it. I wanted to see the film when it came out because it's got Timothée Chalamet in it, and if you know, you know, right? But I would not see the film until I'd read the book. So I got hold of this book. It's a sci-fi kind of fantasy read, and I have to admit, like, being maybe a tad bit older, you know, fantasy, sci-fi kind of reads were my thing when I was a bit younger, but I'd kind of put them off for a while after school. Didn't really like engage with them so much. I thought to myself, oh, you know, it's the same story over and over again. It's magic, whatever. It's great. This book, however, just changed my world. It's massive, right? I know there's other books in the series, and I haven't read those, but this book's like 500 pages. I read this book, I think, in like 5 days. It was, no, less, definitely less. So it was like 100 pages a day. I read this book so quickly. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Would read it again. Would read it countless times because it is so brilliant. It's so original. It's so clever. The only issue I have with it, I have one singular issue. The lead character's name is Paul, which you would know from the film if you've watched the film. Go watch the film. Film's great. Absolutely phenomenal score. I'm speechless when it comes to that score. Issue with this book. Lead character's name is Paul. I'm pretty sure that what they did was they were like, well, Frank Herbert, what he did was like, I don't really know what I want to name this character. he's got to have a pretty cool name because he's the lead character, right? He is the protagonist. Everything happens to him. I don't know what I'm going to call him. You know what? I'm just going to put a placeholder in there. I'm going to call him Paul. And then he just couldn't think of a better name. And he just left it. Not that Paul's a bad name. If your name is Paul, great. My friend's named Paul. That's amazing. Compared to everyone else's name, I just feel there was a missed opportunity. All I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Right. Tomb of Sand, Gietanjali Shree. Translated by Daisy Rockwell. If you have not read this book, because you look at it and you think, oh my lord, am I reading that? Absolutely not. You have to read this book. You have to read this book. It is incredible. It is just incredible. It is amazing. So this book was it was recommended for my World Lit seminar last year. I got hold of it, I read it, I loved it so much. I presented on it, I wrote on it in my seminar essay, and I wrote on it again later on in my literary theory essay. I cannot stop thinking about this book. Almost a year on from reading it, I think about this book all the time. This translation won the International Booker Prize 2022 last year. And it makes complete sense why it won, because it's brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. And if my memory serves me correct, but I will fact check this and put a little note here if I am wrong, the Dublin Literary Awards have nominated this book for this year's award. If they have, if I'm right, which I think I am because I remember seeing something on Instagram the other day. If I'm right, I will eat my hat if this book doesn't win. It's incredible. The translation is phenomenal. And if you're confused by it, you're confused by the way it's written, do yourself a favor. Read the translator's note that's right at the back here. It talks about the way that the language was written, how Shree writes in Hindi, and the way that she writes, and the sense of her writing, and how Rockwell, the translator, had attempted to mimic that, because it's mind-blowing. It is absolutely mind-blowing. A little bit about the book. It's also set in quite an interesting space of time. It's during the time of partition between India and Pakistan, and it revolves around two generations of women, Ma and her daughter. And I'll just read the blurb. It's very, very interesting. In northern India, an 80-year-old woman slips into a deep depression at the death of her husband, then resurfaces to gain a new lease on life. Her determination to fly in the face of convention, including striking up a friendship with a Hijra person, confuses her bohemian daughter, who's used to thinking of herself as the more modern of the two. Rather than respond to tragedy with seriousness, Gietanjali Shree's playful tone and exuberant wordplay results in a book that is engaging, funny, and utterly original. So true. At the same time as being an urgent and timely protest against the destructive impact of borders and boundaries, whether between religions, countries, or genders. Guys, read this book. And if you want a more intelligent review than the one I just gave, I will link down below Cait Books' review. He absolutely loves this book as well, so big shout out to Kieran. This book has become the love of my life. I've just finished reading it a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know, maybe it's because I live in Dublin, maybe it's because I'm Irish, maybe it's because it's just an incredible book, but this book spoke to me on a level that I actually can't describe. It's just insane. It's absolutely insane. I'll link my short little book talk review on this up in the corner somewhere. And Ulysses is just, it's absolutely incredible. It is a slog. It is hard work. It is like, what can I describe reading this book as? It's like training for a marathon, reading this book. All the reading that you've ever done in your entire life has led to this point, has led to this marathon read. And you prepare for it. You know, you read your classics, you maybe read a bit of Greek history, you read your Shakespeare, and then you get to this book. And it is the slog. It is the marathon. And whatever companion guide you decide to choose, high praise for this bad boy, Ulysses Unbound. Whatever companion guide you decide to choose is the banging playlist that you need to get through this marathon. Because at the end of it, it's so worth it. It is so worth it. This book is incredible. It's depth of psychology, of sociology, of diving into ordinary people's thoughts and minds, and the way that they just think about things is profound. It's commentary on gender, on politics, on everything that was going on in the modern era, early 1900s. I can't even begin. Look, guys, I am on the hunt for a really good looking copy of this book. This was the book that I used for university. I have notes in the margins, I have tags, I have all kinds of things in here that isn't representative of a book that I love so much, because I have studied it, the spine is bent, all this kind of thing. I am on the lookout for a beautiful copy of this book. If you can recommend one to me, pop it down in the comments down below. I would highly appreciate it. Whew. All this excitement is like, it's too much. I love it. I love it. Let's talk about books all the time. That's what this channel is for, right? Well, that and other things. Right. Stoner by John Williams. This book took me by surprise. I bought this book, as I think I mentioned earlier, secondhand. The spine is bent. It's also kind of crooked. Can you see that? Yeah. Which I'm not a huge fan of, but it fits in with my vintage red spine collection. Over there. Yeah. And when it came up on the Sunbeams Jess book club Discord, I was like, oh, well, I'll read it. You know, let's see. I had very little expectations when I dived into this book, particularly because the plot itself is linear. It's not exciting, but the atmosphere that this book creates is second to none. Absolutely incredible. William Stoner enters the University of Missouri at 19 to study agriculture. Later, he becomes a teacher. He marries the wrong woman. His life is quiet, and after his death, his colleagues remember him rarely. Yet with truthfulness, compassion, and intense power, this novel uncovers a story of universal value. Stoner tells of the conflicts, defeat, and victories of the human race that pass unrecorded by history and reclaim the significance of an individual life. A reading experience like no other, itself a pain to the power of literature. It is a novel to be savored. Yeah. It is a novel to be savored. Do yourself a favor. Read this book. If you're in academia, you will love this. Absolutely love it. Right. The love story that defies. And if you haven't read Giovannis Room, you can do it in a day, half a day. It is a short little book. The one that I have here is not even 150 pages. It is so beautiful. Think Bohemian France, think an illicit, fiery love affair. And I mean, when David meets the sensual Giovanni in a Bohemian bar, he is swept into a passionate love affair. But his girlfriend's return to Paris destroys everything. Unable to admit the truth, David pretends the liaison never happened, while Giovanni's life descends into tragedy. This book is absolutely incredible. And if you have not read any of James Baldwin, you need to get on that straight away. Okay, bear with me, guys. We're almost done. We just spoke about Giovanni's Room. Sorry for the interruption. I was just getting messages from the accepted girls. Let's finish up with what I think would be the controversial pick. Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. I read this book when I was I was in high school when I read this book. I remember it clearly. I was in my final year of high school. It was one of my uncle's favorite books. He recommended that I read it and form my own opinions, because he said that he liked it, but a lot of people didn't like it. And I can see why a lot of people don't like it. And Rand's philosophy is very... It's not idealistic. It is not popular. It's not going to be something that talks to everyone. It probably shouldn't talk to a lot of people, quite frankly, because it is very controversial. It's an incredibly controversial theory, objectivism. And I can't explain it in a profound way, because I'll just end up messing it up. And so I will link a video down below that I found that really helped me to understand her life and her philosophy that she advocates in this book and in Atlas Shrugged. But The Fountainhead spoke to me. It spoke to me in so many different ways. And I think primarily because it talks about a character, Howard Rourke, who is problematic. He's misogynist, he's a bit twisted. There's just a trigger warning. There's a scene in here that's sexually explicit. He's not an overall great character, person, morally, right? But there's something about the characters in this book, not just Howard Rourke, but like Dominique Franco and Dagny Taggart in Atlas Shrugged, who have this sense of self-confidence that allows them to pursue their passions, what they're good at, without fear of judgment. And yes, that does lead to some very controversial circumstances because they really don't care. They really just don't care. But there is something in here that just talks to genius and talks to pursuit of passions, and it's one of those books, and I will happily concede, it's one of those books you either love it or you hate it, and there is no in between. You don't just read it and you're like, oh yeah, that was nice, it's fun. You love it or you hate it. And I just happen to fall on the side that loves this book, and I will continue to love it for a long time. But I concede some people will disagree, some people will hate me for saying this. That's fine. You are so entitled, because I can see why you would hate this book. I completely agree with your point of view. And I am not saying that I'm right, because I know I'm not. But I love this book. I absolutely loved it. The way it was written, her paragraphs, her writing. I mean, the fact that she was a Russian author. She only spoke Russian when she came to the US in the 20s, I believe. She came to the US, didn't speak a word of English, learned English, and just, she wrote this book. She wrote this book. I don't know what it is about Russian authors that do this. What's his name? Also did this. Nabokov, who wrote Lolita. Absolutely incredible book. Absolutely incredible book. Yes. Is it a book about a guy who has a very twisted relationship with an underage girl? Yes. Is it about a pervert? Yes, it is. 100% it's about a pervert. And this book is similar, not in its themes, but it contains some really twisted, dark, awful story points. But in the same way that you look at Lolita and you think to myself, or you think to yourself, this is incredibly written. Yep. That's my thoughts. Please don't cancel me. These are my thoughts. Right. Okay. So I realized that I've just rambled on and I didn't even go through some of the Goodreads reviews of it. Might have to do some clever editing.